Welcome back to the Adventures of the Monad, which will look at life, the universe, and everything. My name is Kazim Kamal-ur-Rahim. In this series I ask the question, where do we come from, who are we, and where are we going? I post one presentation a week. Please subscribe to my website and hit the bell icon for notifications of future videos. You can also leave comments and join in forum discussions on my website. I have done 9 presentations now without a recap. The time has come to revisit a number of themes and draw them together into a coherent presentation of the Hylozoic view of our universe. I wish to start by looking at the very matter in our universe. The starting point is the Antiverse, where I told you existed primordial matter. This matter is infinitely dense, yet infinitely elastic. This is why the Antiverse can stretch around trillions of separate universes without rupturing. The complex of the Antiverse and the universe is called the Metaverse. When primordial matter enters a universe, it becomes a primary atom. This is known as a one atom and was given the name Monad by Pythagoras. This little beastie is very important because that is all there is in the universe. Just this one atom. All the complexity that exists in the universe can be traced back to this one type of atom. However, it is not as simple as that. It never is. In my last 2 presentations, I talked about the rays and the fact that there were 7 of them. So here we have the primary differentiation of the one atom. It can have 7 distinct orientations or colors, if you like to think of it like that. I told you there was only one kind of atom, and I was correct. However, it is also correct to say that this atom is transformed by the actions of supremely evolved monads into 7 variants. When you reach the cosmic physical plane, 43 to 49, you also find the presence of 42 types of molecules. Why 42 and not 49? Because the very top of every subplane in the cosmic physical plane is atomic. So you have 42 molecular and 7 atomic subplanes. So I am now going to revisit the fundamental types of matter in the universe and say that there are 7 types of atoms and 42 types of molecules. That is final, I promise. I am not going to spring anything else on you. Getting back to those one atoms, they are found everywhere in the universe. They combine with other atoms into groups of 49 to form subsequently denser planes. There are 49 of these planes in total, and this is the ultimate flaw beyond which matter cannot get any denser. To find out why, revisit my earlier presentations. 49 is a multiple of 7, and I find it fascinating that there are 7 cosmic planes in the universe, but if you include the subplanes, there are 49. If you just look at our solar system on the lowest, the cosmic physical plane, it contains 7 subplanes, but these subplanes can be further divided into 7 subplanes, giving 49 planes within our solar system itself. The fascinating thing to me is that each of these planes is made up of one type of atom that itself is made up of a cluster of 49 atoms from the plane above it. 49 is everywhere. Remember, when I say planes above and below, I really mean planes within, as all the planes occupy the same space in the universe. Is the universe finite or infinite? Well, there was a time before there was a universe. The Absolute brought this universe into being. This supreme monad is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient within the confines of this universe. To it, the universe is a subjective reality as it has thought us into being. Why do this in the first place? Because the universe is a factory to create more absolutes. Every humble monad, which starts its journey into the universe, is unconscious, but more importantly, potentially conscious. It is a raising of this consciousness that life, the universe, and everything is all about. So we are here as long as the Absolute holds its focus on us. When it does not, the universe dissolves back into the Antiverse. This answers the question about whether the universe is finite or infinite. The shape of the universe has been described as a dodecahedron by the great thinkers of antiquity. So you can travel through the universe and never leave it, as you are traversing the surface of what is effectively a cosmic hall of mirrors. While we are on the subject of this cosmic football, the very fact that it is there and it is separate from the Antiverse means it occupies a space. Remember, in the Antiverse there is no space, but in the universe there certainly is. No one monad ever touches another. That gap between them is a space. So there is space. It never goes away. It does change, however. We are well aware that we exist in a three-dimensional world. We also know that we exist physically on the 49 planes of matter. So, on the 49th plane, there are 3 dimensions. There is also another dimension present, but this is not spatial. It is temporal. Time is always present on every plane of matter. There was a time before that plane existed, and there will be a time when it does not exist anymore. So, time is to be found everywhere. As you ascend through the planes, consciousness perceives that plane in one more dimension. From moving from the 49th to the 48th plane, a monad is able to perceive that new plane in 4 dimensions. This is almost impossible for us to understand. Your consciousness on the 48th plane is able to see an object in 3 dimensions and can simultaneously see the world from inside the object. It looks outward in 360 degrees. If that does not send your head spinning, you have a much stronger constitution than me. Go up another plane and you have 5 dimensions and 10 spatial directions. Just give up and sit down. You are never going to get your head around that. The consequence of all this multiplication of dimensions is that if you are functioning in them and then wish to come back onto the 49th plane, you are going to find it very difficult to translate what you experience there. How do you describe 5 dimensions down here? Although I mention that time was to be found on all planes, the perception of that time changes as the number of spatial dimensions increase. Simply put, as space increases, time shrinks. The ultimate expression of this can be found in the Antiverse, where there is infinite space and therefore no time at all. The Antiverse is quite literally timeless. The question of when it all began is a pointless one. I wish to wrap up my recap on time and space by saying that objectively time is linear. It starts with the onset of the universe and stops when the universe completes its cycle. This is a very definite unit of time. How that time is perceived is subjective, however. When a monad reaches enlightenment, I3, every event it views can be seen in the present, but causally linked back to the past. You now not only know something is occurring, but why it is occurring, because you know the history leading up to that event. So the past and the present fuse into the present. This does not mean that time has gone away, or that somehow it is not linear. The past you were able to review is a recording of events. They are not occurring in the present. I have heard some really fanciful explanations of how all events are occurring simultaneously. They are not. It is just your ability to perceive larger expanses of events within your consciousness that change as you evolve. The future is another matter. You cannot know the future, but you can predict it if you are in possession of all the facts. All is the crucial word. If you do not know all the variables, then your prediction of the future is bound to be more sketchy. I suspect even the absolute cannot know the final outcome of the creative process. That, surely, is the whole point of setting the ball rolling to see what comes out in the mix. My next 5 presentations looked at the world that surrounds our planet. I also outline the concepts behind the rays and what they stand for. I very often talk about planes of matter. What defines a plane is that everything on that plane is composed of one primary type of atom. In the case of the emotional plane, it is the 48 atom. This atom itself is composed of myriads of individual 1 atoms that have clustered together. The number of these monads found in a 48 atom are precise, the number being 2.75 to the power 79. The subplanes found on the 48th plane are composed of molecules, not atoms. This only occurs on the subplanes within the cosmic physical kingdom. However, these molecules are also composed of 48 atoms. A world has the same defining characteristics as a plane. It is composed of one type of atom. The world is a subset of a plane that surrounds a highly developed monad. Humanity dwells within the envelope structure that surrounds our planetary logos. Like us, this monad has a series of bodies, and these bodies constitute its and our worlds. The world extends as far as the mental plane and interpenetrates the physical structure of the globe, but also extends into the solar system. In the case of the emotional world, as far as halfway to the moon. Although we have a series of envelopes surrounding us, each envelope is made from tertiary matter that exists on a particular plane. That plane itself is within the world of the planetary logos and has a prescribed radius. We as monads developing in the 4th kingdom cannot pass beyond the boundaries of this greater world. I pointed out that we are not the only life stream to be found associated with our planetary logos. There are 7 life streams in total. We only know of 2, the Devas and ourselves. Another interesting tidbit I mentioned in my presentation was that the denser levels of matter in any subplane are found nearer the center of the world. As every plane of matter interpenetrates all other planes, the lowest planes of the emotional world, which can be rightly thought of as hell, are to be found beneath our feet quite literally. In the study of esoterics, it is easy to overlook the wonders of the lowest of these 3 subplanes of our physical world. This is the body of an evolving entity, distinct from the planetary logos itself. It is very much a world like the emotional or the mental, and is the only one we objectively perceive in our waking state. This is the first world we as young monads perceive as we enter the human kingdom. The other worlds are a mystery to us, even when we sleep at this stage of our development. But inevitably, when we are thinking with our esoteric hat on, we turn our attention to the more refined planes of matter, and we then find ourselves in the etheric world of this planet. What I wish to recap here is that the etheric envelope is an interface between our higher envelopes of incarnation and the physical organism, which is not really part of us at all. This is why I call our physical body a virtual reality suit. The vital role the etheric envelope plays in our lives has been hinted at and will be featured in future presentations. As we are talking about worlds, not planes or our specific envelopes, the etheric world is the home of an interesting group of Devas that are closely allied to the functions of not just us, but the animal and plant life streams. These beings have featured heavily in our mythologies and go by such names as gnomes, fairies, and nature spirits. It is interesting to note that access to this etheric world is a faculty that humanity will develop over the next few centuries. This world will then no longer just inhabit our mythologies. Passing beyond the etheric world, we enter into what is usually referred to as the spirit world. The first division of this is called the astral world, but I have stated why this is an inappropriate name. Referring to it as the emotional world is more accurate. The big takeaway for this world is that it is composed of a different basic atomic structure to the physical or the mental worlds. The next thing to note is that it is composed of elemental essences that are passively conscious. It is these monads, known as secondary matter, that we form into elemental structures with the application of our consciousness. But remember, we are ultimately a tiny little monad. But relative to an elemental essence, we have a colossal consciousness. What we deem as being our emotions are these elemental essences vibrating in the structure that we form within our thoughts. This is a non-intuitive concept. We think our emotions belong to us. It comes as a surprise to learn that emotions are entities in their own right. We order them into shapes and can even form entire environments with them, but they are not us, and the shapes are only temporary. They last as long as we focus our intention on them. Every world has a memory of its own, and this memory is known as the Akashic record. It is comprised of tertiary matter and not secondary matter. Why? Secondary matter is passively conscious. You need a memory to record anything, and that starts with tertiary matter. Alas, the quality of the storage drives in each world are not equal. As you rise through the worlds, the accuracy of the data storage increases. For us, the highest capacity drives we can access are found in the causal world. Unfortunately, the only memory banks available to most clairvoyants are to be found in the emotional world, often called the world of illusions. I need to say no more. The emotional world is the most important for humanity at this phase of its development. The majority of monads incarnate today are focused in their 48-1 permanent atom. This is also the next world the monad enters when it discarnates at the end of its physical life. One of the key points of interest in the monad's passage through the emotional world is that this world is roughly divided into two halves, paradise and hell. If your emotional envelope is stuffed full of negative elemental essences, guess where you are going? This visit is not a passport to eternity. However, you do need to rid yourself of these negative little beasties before you can raise your focus of consciousness into the other half of this world known as paradise. That may sound like a bit of all right. Paradise, what more could you want? Well, actually, a lot more. But I will get to that in a moment. This so-called paradise is a consensus environment and about as close to reality as someone's description of themselves on a dating site. The good news is that we eventually come to our senses and realize that paradise is fake. We then are ready to transition into the next world. What could possibly come after paradise? Heaven, of course. We now enter the lower half of a world where most of us are only subjectively conscious. No worries. This subjective environment is just perfect. Why? Because that is how we imagine it to be. This bubble of bliss we inhabit may be imaginary, but it is not illusory as everything was in the emotional world. The point of this heavenly environment and our sojourn through it is to allow the monad to process its most recent incarnations. The monad dissects what exactly it learnt from all its experiences. It also allows the monad to practice certain skills that it may wish to pursue further in future incarnations. Mozart took many incarnations and a lot of practice on the mental plane before he wrote the Jupiter Symphony. The lower mental world, like our lower mental bodies, is composed of 4 molecular levels. As the monad evolves, it comes to alight on the more subtle planes, and this world slowly becomes objective to it. This is when things really start to get interesting as well as illuminating. Now it is possible for more advanced monads from the 5th and the 6th kingdom to come down amongst us and to teach us what we need to learn to become more effective monads in our future incarnations. Remember, the goal of every monad is ultimately to serve the divine plan. This sounds like a lofty statement, but it basically points to the fact that we are in the 4 worlds of a much more advanced monad. That monad has a goal to evolve itself. We are part of that process of evolution. So, if you scratch my back, I will scratch yours. Getting with the plan is to everyone's interest. The last of the worlds around our globe is the causal world. This is an extension of the lower mental world, but exists on the 2nd, not the 1st triad. The causal world is as high as we can go. This is where our causal body resides, and this currently is our true home. Most of who we are is up there, not down here with our persona. Yet for the vast majority of us, this world is a complete blank, as we lose consciousness when we return to it. This changes over time as we evolve. Our gradual access to this world comes first in the form of intuition and then inspiration. That completes my tour of the worlds. This is where we live. This is where we evolve. And each one of these worlds houses one of our envelopes of incarnation. The causal world is where it all starts, and the physical world is where it all happens. Between are the worlds, where we come to learn who we really are, by first coming to know ourselves, and then finally merging back into a group consciousness when we leave these worlds for greater things. The last topic I discussed in this series of presentations was the theory of rays. After understanding the Holy Trinity of motion, consciousness, and matter, the rays are the most important concept to grasp. The reason is that there are only 7 types of atoms in the whole universe, and these atoms are directly linked to one of the 7 rays. You are a single monad. You have one particular orientation that you inherit the minute you come into the universe. This is you, and this is not going away. However, to become omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, which is your ultimate goal, you have to completely understand all the 7 rays. This you go about achieving by experiencing the effects of all the rays in all your various envelopes of incarnation. Every possible permutation and combination is tried by you. In your passage through the solar system, you find by the time you reach the 3rd triad, the 7 rays merge into just 3, the primary rays, which, surprise, surprise, equate exactly to the Holy Trinity. The rays themselves are given the designation of 1, willpower, 2, love wisdom, and 3, active intelligence. Don't be fooled. This is just a thin disguise for those very same 3 principles I outlined in my very first presentation. Understand the Holy Trinity and its centrality in everything there is, and you have the answer to life, the universe, and everything. In my next presentation, rather than looking at the worlds around our planet, I'll look in detail at our own worlds. These are our various bodies of incarnation. If you wish to read a transcript of the presentation or leave comments, links to my website are in the description box below. Thank you.